All right, I want to hear from Brother Bob Gray from up in Maine. When did you give your testimony? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was 2001.
2001?
Same time Cal and Jean did, as I remember.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
And what have you been doing since?
Oh, boy. Hanging on for the ride.
All right. Go for it.
Wow. So much stuff's been going on. It's amazing. Two things that God's really been speaking to me a lot about lately is story and influence. And never underestimate the influence that you can have. I didn't realize when I gave my testimony here that it was being taped. Or I knew it was being taped, but I didn't know where it would end up. And it ended up on the internet, and I can't tell you how many people I've had email me and say, I heard your testimony on the internet. Probably the best one was a witness friend of mine who I've known now for 21 years, and he gave his testimony here just a few years ago. It's Gary Bomar. He's down in Australia now. But I'd been out of touch with Gary for several years because I was out and he was still in. And I was at a church meeting one Wednesday night, and I came out and I had a voicemail from Shay on the phone that Gary had called and wanted to talk. And he had since remarried. I had never met Deb before. And I called Gary, and he says, yeah, he says, my wife was playing me testimonies off the internet. And she had played a few, and Gary was starting to question things. And she says, there's one here by a guy named Bob Gray. And Gary says, well, I know a Bob Gray, but it couldn't be him. And he says, well, go ahead and play it. And he said, 2 words out of your mouth, I knew it was you. And so I went over and met with him. I was so prayed up that day, and I just wanted him to understand the joy that I had found since leaving the witnesses and coming to Christ. So yeah, never underestimate how much influence God can give your story. Lately, it's amazing. One of my favorite scriptures that I just learned maybe a year ago, it's Psalm 66:16, and I like it from the English Standard Version. It says, come, you who fear the Lord, listen, and I will tell what he has done for my soul. And each one of us has a story. And another scripture, just a few chapters off from that, and it's the one that a lot of our stories started with, and it's Psalm 88:8, and it says, you have taken from me my closest friends and made me repulsive to them. You know, and the whole process of leaving the witnesses is, by and large, a pretty negative experience on the way out. But when we learn who the true Jesus is, boy, do things turn around. This whole thing of story is so interesting because you think about the Bible is a book of stories. It's a book of other people's testimonies. And when you tell your testimony, it kind of brings you back to that moment when you first surrendered to Christ. And for me, that was here. So every time I come back here, it's coming home on several different levels. You know, Eric preached the night that I finally surrendered to Christ. And, you know, I'd been arguing with him for a couple of months at that point about this whole business of asking Jesus into your heart and all of that. And I didn't come forward here, but, you know, 4:15 that morning, God got a hold of me, and I finally surrendered to Christ and asked Christ into my heart. And it's been just a ride ever since. I mean, he has put so many people in my life that have taught me so much, and so much of it revolves around their story. You know, what they went through leaving the witnesses and what they went through finally coming to Christ. Just a quick thing about ministry, too. You know, never underestimate the value of a small ministry. You know, I put up this website. It started back in 1995. I barely touch it these days. It's just out there. You know, I wrote what I felt. I wrote what I observed. I wrote what I've been through. and I constantly get email from it. So with the technology today, you can just put your story on a website. It costs me $100 a year to keep this website up there. And since, let me think, I think it's been about 4 years now, I've had 500,000 page reads on there. And mine isn't one of the most active websites there is. So think about what it is that God's done in your life. That's really your story, your testimony. And you never know who else your story and your testimony might touch.
You found a fellowship as well, where you felt at home with the family of God, right?
Oh, I got all kinds of it. Yeah, I got 2 churches that I'm involved in right now, and kind of the key to the second one I'm involved in is the technical ministry. I work the soundboard for both my home church, which is in Elliott, Maine, little town up there. We've got about 800 people in my church. And then over in Greenland, New Hampshire, is Bethany Church. It's 2,500 adults, 900 kids in Sunday school. And they're both different churches, wonderful fellowships. You know, they've just contributed so much to my growth. And the beauty of both of them is it's a place where I can contribute. And they're both churches that appreciate my past as a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, I'll tell anyone that'll listen that I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, and I'm out now, and I'm a Christian, and really what the difference between a Jehovah's Witness and a Christian is. And, you know, that's a precious thing when you've got not one but 2 church bodies that appreciate that.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.